They say monsters can't love. That a Gumiho only exists to kill, to take, to devour. But what if, just once, one of them forgot how to kill, and started to feel something else? This is a story of a fox spirit, who tasted love instead of blood, and a man, who never knew how close he stood to death. If you're here, then maybe you're meant to feel this too. So please subscribe, and stay with us to the end. Because some love stories were never meant to be remembered, but they are never forgotten. They say the wind carries voices, but June didn't believe in old stories. His café Mugwa, sat warm and breathing at the edge of town, its windows fogged from the steam of brewing tea and quiet lives. Inside, June wiped a teacup dry. He wore his favorite pale sweater, sleeves pushed up, golden hair falling slightly into his eyes. A strand of flour clung to his cheek. The radio played something soft. Outside, a figure walked barefoot through the pine needles. The fox had arrived. She looked human, but her steps made no sound. Her white hanbok shimmered faintly, silk catching the moonlight like still water. Her long black hair moved as if underwater. Her name, the one she no longer remembered, had been swallowed centuries ago. But now, she was Seowa. She stepped into the village like mist. Her 9 tails remained hidden, coiled inside her like hunger. Only her eyes betrayed the truth, gold-flecked, shifting with ancient emotion. She had one task: find a man, seduce him, take his heart, and finally, become human. The bell above the cafe door jingled. June looked up. It was late. No one came in this late, not unless they were heartbroken or drunk. She stood there, still as a photograph. Bare feet. A pale dress from another time. Eyes that didn't blink. June cleared his throat. She spoke. Her voice was soft but strange, like someone trying to remember how humans spoke. She asked for jasmine tea. He nodded, quietly stealing glances at her. Something about her, not fear, but curiosity wrapped in silence. He set the cup in front of her. Steam rose. She stared at it like it was alive. She didn't drink it. She stayed until closing, not saying much, just sitting, watching, listening. At the door, June smiled and said something dumb, something about how she looked like a ghost from a painting. She tilted her head. That almost smile, it froze her. For the first time in 300 years, Seowa hesitated. She had seduced kings, lured soldiers to their graves, whispered into the ears of poets. But no one had ever smiled at her like that. Not like they wanted her soul, but like they saw it. Back in the woods, her steps slowed. The hunger pulsed again. Her tails ached under her skin. Her kind didn't feel, not like this. She dug her nails into the bark of a pine tree. She should have taken him tonight. His heart would have been warm, still beating. Instead, she remembered his hands. Flower dusted. Kind. Clumsy. Human. One tail slipped out under moonlight, twitching with frustration. She forced it back in. Tomorrow, she would try again. At the market, old women whispered. Someone saw footprints in the dew. Someone heard laughter echo with no source. A fox spirit, they said. The mountain is restless again. June didn't believe in tales. He believed in tea, in timing, in the way some people returned again and again for comfort they couldn't name. She came back. Same time. Same seat. This time, she drank the tea. Rain fell. Soft, slow, like it didn't want to interrupt. Seowa sat by the window, her hand trailing across the glass. Across from her, June sketched lazily into a notepad, not of her, but of the way the rain touched her reflection. He didn't ask questions. She didn't offer answers. But something warm hovered between them. The kind of warmth that made her bones ache. Not from cold, from not knowing what it meant. She touched the mirror that night. 9 shadows flickered behind her, flicking and curling like snakes. She was forgetting. She had waited too long. The fox inside her growled. It would eat him for her. She just had to step aside, but when she closed her eyes, all she saw was him, golden-haired, standing in lamplight, wiping flour from his cheek like a child. She bit her lip until it bled. She still didn't know his name. June handed her a muffin, still warm. On the paper bag, he had written, "To the girl who always watches the rain." She blinked. Her fingers brushed his. For a moment, time folded in. "What's your name?" "Seoa," she whispered. He smiled. Pretty name. It wasn't hers. Not really. But for the first time, she wanted it to be. That night, paper lanterns floated through the village sky. June lit one and sent it into the wind. Seoa watched him from behind the stall. He looked happy, like someone who never expected to be. He looked breakable. The fox in her whispered, "Take him now, while the fire's still warm." She turned and vanished into the dark. But her hands, they were trembling. Rain tapped gently on the cafe's windows. Seoa returned again. No words. Just the warmth of her presence. While June stepped into the back, she reached across the counter, her fingers gliding across a small leather notebook. Curiosity, dangerous and soft, pulled her to open it. Inside, rough sketches of flowers, poems scribbled in margins, and a page. A girl with long hair, sitting by the window. Ha! A soft gasp escaped her lips. Not fear, something worse. Feeling. The moon rose high. The fox inside twisted and clawed at her ribs. It whispered of hearts, of warmth, of the blood she hadn't tasted in weeks. But Seoa stood on the rooftop of a village house, watching light spill from Café Mugwa. June wiped down tables below, gold hair falling into his eyes, humming something off-key. She forgot she was starving. She forgot she was not human. Midday. A quiet lull in the cafe. June stood beside her, flour on his hands, guiding her how to knead dough. Her hands trembled against his. Not from nerves, but from heat. From proximity. Their fingers brushed. Her fox eyes flickered gold for a heartbeat before fading back to brown. She asked what it meant to bake something for someone. He said, "It means you want them to stay." She didn't answer. But her smile stayed long after the oven cooled. She stayed longer now. Too long. At closing, she waited until the cafe lights dimmed and silence took over. Then, in the quiet, she pressed her palm to the cold glass. Her reflection changed. Not her face, but behind it, faint outlines of tails swirling like smoke. Her breath fogged the window. She whispered, "Not yet. Just one more night," and vanished into mist. June hiked the slope behind the village, holding a wrapped meal and an old thermos. The air was thin. The mountain shrine stood empty, its incense holder dusty with time. He knelt and whispered a prayer to his grandmother. He left the food on the stone step. Unseen behind the trees, Seoa watched him. Not like a predator. Like something ancient watching a memory that was never hers. That night, Seoa stood before her mirror again. Her eyes gold. Her heartbeat alien. A sharp pain bloomed in her side, one of her tails had torn through, just beneath the skin. The curse was fighting her. She wasn't allowed to feel this way. Love was not part of the deal. She touched the bleeding scratch. And for the first time, cried. The village festival pulsed with lights and music. Couples danced under lanterns, drums echoing through the hills. Seoa arrived in a midnight blue dress, hair tied back, skin glowing under moonlight. Everyone stared. No one knew her. Everyone wanted to. But she walked straight to June. He looked stunned. Then, without a word, offered his hand. They danced. Slow, deliberate, too close for breathing. Her fingers curled against his chest. She didn't take his heart. She gave him her silence instead. He offered her his spare room. She didn't say no. Seowa stood in the doorway, touching the books, the lamp, the folded blanket. It was warm, human. She lay on the futon, eyes wide open, and listened to the sounds of a life. His quiet footsteps. A kettle boiling. A door creaking. Her tails coiled tightly inside her skin. She didn't sleep. But she didn't leave either. She dreamed for the first time in centuries. Not of fire, or forests, or bleeding hearts. But of a meadow. Of a boy who handed her a flower and never ran away. It wasn't June. It wasn't anyone she remembered. It was the shape of longing. The kind that makes you forget why you ever needed to kill. Morning light filtered through café windows. June cooked quietly, moving like he always did, calm, precise, unaware that his guest had no shadow today. Seowa stepped behind him and touched his back. He turned. She kissed him. Soft. Trembling. Her tears soaked his apron before he realized she was crying. Behind her eyes, the fox screamed. But she stayed. The kiss lingered longer in her veins than in her lips. June had touched her like she wasn't a monster, and that broke something inside her. That night, her fox tails lashed beneath her skin, furious and starving. Her body convulsed under moonlight, skin glowing and flickering between woman and beast. But she didn't kill. She bit her lip until it bled, curled in his spare room like a wounded thing, and cried into the fabric that smelled like him. June made her breakfast. He didn't ask about the kiss. He didn't ask why she was crying. He just smiled, handing her a bowl of warm porridge, touching her wrist for a second longer than necessary. Seowa sat there in his oversized sweater, her hair messy, her fox eyes hidden behind human softness. She smiled back. And it hurt worse than the hunger. Deep in the woods, past where mortals dared walk, Seowa knelt before a crumbling stone shrine. The oracle, blind and ancient, smelled her presence before he spoke. "The curse does not forgive love," he rasped. "If she didn't feed, she'd die. If she fed, June would die." There were no poems carved into that truth. Back in the cafe, June removed his shirt in front of the bathroom mirror. A faint black mark had appeared on his chest. At first, it looked like a birthmark. But it pulsed. Slowly. In rhythm with hers. In the reflection behind him, he could swear, for a split second, 9 shimmering tails. He blinked. They were gone. Valentine's festival arrived. Lights everywhere. Music spilling into the street. June set up a booth, offering heart-shaped cookies and tea. Seowa, standing behind the counter, wore a fitted red top, a skirt that flowed around her legs like liquid. People flirted, took photos, but her eyes only followed one person. And when he handed her a cookie, she almost cried again. Later that night, she lost control. Not in front of him. In the forest, under thunderclouds, she screamed into the sky as her tails erupted, flaring like fire behind her. Animals fled. Trees bent backward. The fox was winning. And it was hungry. She fell to her knees. Whispered his name like a prayer she wasn't allowed to say. June sat in the cafe alone, sketching. He didn't notice the light flicker. Didn't hear the faint heartbeat in the walls. He drew her. Not her face this time, but her hands, her fingers. How they curled when she was nervous. He didn't know he was drawing a goodbye. Seowa stood in the doorway. She didn't say it. But everything about her was already leaving. She wore a long coat. Her hair was tied back. Her eyes were duller than usual. June reached out, touching her cheek. "If you go," he said with his silence, "don't go far." She kissed his palm and left. In the mountains, fox spirits waited. 9-tailed siblings. Older, crueler, hungrier. They'd felt her disobedience ripple through the bloodline. They saw her mercy, her hesitation, and they wanted to punish it. One of them grinned. "Let's eat the boy first." June stood in front of the cafe, rain soaking through his hoodie. His gold hair, now darker with water, clung to his forehead. His breath fogged his glasses. Arms crossed, holding a paper bag with tea and snacks, waiting. For her. For someone who wouldn't come back. But he stood anyway. As if his stillness could pull her home. Seowa walked through the forest, barefoot, dressed in white. The sky trembled above her, not thunder, but the rumble of something older. The moon turned red. The bond between her and June had begun to split the curse open. She could feel every thread unraveling in her bones. Her tales flickered in and out of reality. The forest called her home. But home no longer meant anything. June found a folded note beneath his teacup the next morning. No name. No goodbye. Just a drawing. Her hand in his. He looked out the window. The rain had stopped. The cafe was too quiet. He put on his coat, locked the doors, and walked into the mountains. He didn't know where he was going. But he followed the silence. On a stone platform deep in the woods, they waited, the fox spirits, radiant and terrible. 9 beings with burning eyes and tails like fire. Seowa arrived alone, her body trembling from the cost of being near him, of not killing him. The leader stepped forward, tail arched high. "You let him touch your soul, sister." Seowa didn't deny it. They demanded it. His heart. Before sunrise. If she refused, they would devour him anyway and make her watch. She stood still as stone. Inside, everything burned. Then she said the one thing the fox spirits feared. "I choose him." The sky cracked. From the trees to the mountain, wind howled like something alive. The foxes screeched and scattered, their tails dissolving midair like smoke pulled into a storm. Seowa screamed. Her body arched, glowing, pulsing with centuries of magic being ripped apart. She wasn't dying, but something inside her was. June arrived just in time to catch her. She fell into his arms, weightless, flickering like light. Her eyes were no longer golden, they were human. She touched his face. His name was the only thing she remembered. Then her body went limp in his arms, as if the soul had let go for just a moment to rest. He carried her down the mountain, wrapped in his coat, bare feet dangling. She slept for the first time since she was made. The village watched him pass, silent. They didn't know her, but they knew the look in his eyes. Like someone who'd just won the war and didn't know what to do with the peace. Weeks passed. The fox spirits never returned. The curse was gone. Seowa wore sweaters now. She laughed awkwardly. She didn't know how to make tea. She got cold too easily. June didn't ask questions. He just gave her a job. And a key. One night, she told him everything. What she had been. What she almost did. What she was willing to become for him. June didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He just kissed her hand, the one that had once held death like a habit, and placed it over his heart. Years later, people still whispered about that girl who appeared one rainy season and never left. At Café Mugwa, she stood behind the counter beside him, pouring tea. Sometimes, in the reflections of the window, you could still see the faint shimmer of 9 tails, just for a moment, curling behind her. But no one ever asked, and she never had to kill again.